Good morning. It's Thursday morning, and we're at last in Romans 12. So we're going to do verses 1 and 2 this morning, which says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, and what is good and acceptable and perfect. It's often said that in Paul's letters, he starts off with whatever the issue is that's on his mind, and he talks about that. Here in Romans, he talks a lot about salvation. In Galatians, he talks about the need to obey the law or not. In Corinthians, he talks about the need for them to obey the law. It depends on the context. And then toward the end of the letter, he trails off into all of these admonitions and greetings and exhortations for specific people in the group. So that's what he's done here. We've had 1 through 8 where he talked about salvation. We've had 9 through 11 where he really talks about the inclusion of the Jewish people at that time in that covenant. And now he's going to talk much more personally to the people in Rome, which is kind of interesting because we have no evidence that he'd ever been there before, and it seems like he's introducing himself in this letter, and yet, here we go. So he says, present our bodies as a living sacrifice, which is our spiritual worship. Ancient Greece in general had problems with the physical and the spiritual. And I say problems, they thought that the physical body was sort of a trap, that some creator God had made the world and trapped us all in it, and the goal of human life was to free ourselves from these bodies and be spiritual bodies united to spiritual higher beings. That underlies a lot of Greek thinking, and even underlies some of what goes on in the New Testament. Even though the New Testament doesn't share that philosophy, it affects it. So he says, present your bodies to God, which is your spiritual worship. So he's connecting the two in a different kind of way. And then he says, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed, be metamorphosized by the renewal of your mind. So let the Spirit work in your mind to elevate, perhaps, and change your perspectives and your interests, and so that you can slowly grow and discern the will of God and discern what God is doing in the world. And all of that is good and acceptable. And he says perfect. The word there really is perfection in the sense of complete. Perfect is good, acceptable, and complete or whole. So don't be conformed to this world. Now what might that mean for us? Could mean a whole lot of things. But if you decide that you really want to watch, Godfather movies, it's 50 years old today, so let's take that one. You're going to watch these movies because you think it's interesting. Well, it is interesting, I suppose. I've never seen them actually, but watching movies like that will sort of lead you into a certain way of seeing the world and a certain way of thinking and a certain way of acting. And it's not always a Christian way. It's not always consonant with following Jesus, and that's part of the trouble. I like to watch thrillers and sort of mysteries and stuff, but rarely is there any character on there who's a Christian role model, and so that's part of a problem. So you've got to learn to say, okay, I really like this character. I like what he's doing, even though he's pretty violent and and profane and says a lot of things he shouldn't say. but you're going to sort of see past that. Perhaps you're going to let your mind, and I think grow up is a good way to see the word transformed there. It's change of form. It's metamorphosis, like when a butterfly, a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. So we want to become butterflies and fly around. You know, we want to lift ourselves out of the ordinary stuff of human life. And that's tough because it's around us constantly. This world is with us. It's the air that we breathe. It's like the fish who doesn't realize he's in the water because he's in the water his whole life, and only when you pull him out of the water does he miss it. And we are in this water, this environment that that drags us down, and we want to rise up. And so keep that in mind today, and see what you can do with those verses. And we will continue with Romans 12 tomorrow. So see you then.